Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna make the best chili. So you'll need a couple ingredients. First thing you need is ground beef, and I'm also going to use sausage. You can use ground sausage. This was sausage that was in the casing. I now remove the casing. And you'll need bacon. Bacon is not pictured here, but I'll show you as my recipe progresses. You need carrots, a bell pepper, butter, beef broth, beer, any kind of beer, long as it's not like a stout. I'm going to be using leftover beans that I had prepared for dinner, so this is a good way to use them, and you won't end up being wasteful. So that's why I'm using this. These are pinto beans, and these are some leftover black beans that are both going to be tossed in. Tomato sauce, diced tomatoes. And for the spices, I'm going to use some seasoned salt, some oregano, onion powder, cumin, and of course chili powder. I'm going to use some roasted garlic powder and paprika. These are the ingredients, and let's get cooking. Okay, in this pot we have 2 tablespoons of butter that is starting to melt. And the beauty about this dish is there's going to be a one pot dish, so it makes cleanup nice and easy. So here are the vegetables that we're going to be sauteing, and I saute the vegetables first. We have finely chopped carrots, finely chopped onion, and it was a large bell pepper, and it was I used half of that. This is really, really fine. I use my little chopping food processor, and I do it on high because my husband's really not a fan of bell peppers. So the first thing I do is I wait for the oil to heat, and it's looking nice now, and I toss in my vegetables. And this is where you start to build on your flavors. The vegetables are thinly chopped, so it doesn't take long for them to start to get tender. And here is your first level of building on your flavors. You start to add seasonings to your vegetables, and then you're going to add it also in with the meat. The first thing is the paprika. Each one is just 1 tablespoon for each one of the seasonings. You have the roasted garlic. You have the chili powder. You're only going to do maybe just a touch more of the chili powder. I'll say maybe about 2 teaspoons. And we're going to, you see, we're doing it right on top of the vegetables, and we're going to mix that in and get it nice and combined. That's the onion powder. We need some little bit of oregano leaves, and last but not least, you have cumin, which this is really my favorite. It's the star, along with the chili powder. So you just add the seasonings in, and you just give it a stir, and you combine it, and you just want all the flavors to meld together. You just stir, and you can already just get the smell. You have the essence right now, the smell of the chili. And just let it cook and stir down, maybe for another minute, no longer than 2 minutes. But with the butter in there, it's helping them not to stick to the pan. You just want to constantly stir and get all the seasonings in there. And now is the time that I add in my pork. This is the bacon that I mentioned that was not pictured. It's 2 slices of thick cut bacon that I sliced just with my kitchen knife. And here is the sausage. So I'm going to add it to the pan and break it up. Of course, if you don't eat pork, or you're unsure about this step, please omit it. Your kitchen, your cooking. But we eat pork, and this is gives it just a great flavor. Just so you add it right in with the vegetables, and you continue to break them up and stir it around for probably about 3 to 4 minutes. You want the sausage to start to break down and cook, but it doesn't have to be cooked all the way because you're going to be adding the ground beef on top of this mixture. Okay, so it's been cooking away And you see I didn't need to add any more liquid other than the 2 tablespoons of butter that I started with. The bacon and the sausage has released some grease, so I don't need to add any more to it to help my meat and vegetables from sticking. So now I have, this is like 1.5 pounds of ground beef. I've created a little well in there, and I'm going to drop that right in. Get that broken up. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt. Just a little bit of salt to, just to season the meat. You don't want to add too much because we already have other seasonings working in there, and you can adjust as you go along. But just a little bit of salt, and then you just continue to break up the ground beef and get it mixed in with your vegetables and your pork mix. Here the ground beef is all broken up and it's combined in with my pork and vegetable mixture, and it's just gonna continue. I'm going to continue to stir it and keep breaking up all the chunks of meat to get it thoroughly cooked. We are going to let it simmer after everything's combined, but at this step I do try to make sure that the meat is completely cooked. After it's all cooked, you're going to want to drain the ground beef and pork mixture. You can see that part that's fat. You want to drain it. You don't have to squeeze it and make sure it's like no fat at all in there, but you don't really want lots of fat. I try to use linear cuts of meat, but as you can see this time I did not. With the meat drained, it's been returned to the pot, and now it's the time you're going to use your beer and you're going to deglaze it. I'm using just a bottle of beer, and I'm not going to use all of it. I'll just use half, and you just pour it right in. And at this point I let it cook for at least 5 minutes, and then I add my beef broth to layer the flavors, and then I start to add my seasonings, the one that I added previous, the same ones. We mirror and taste it and start building our. Okay, I've added in my seasonings. We have paprika and chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, and some oregano. So I'm going to combine this, mix it in, and turn it down to medium low. And then we're going to add in our tomatoes, which is a can of diced tomatoes, a can of tomato sauce, and our beans. I know there are chili purists that don't add beans to their chili, but I happen to love beans, so that's what I'm going to add into mine. You can leave it out. Like I said earlier, you can leave out the pork, you can leave out the bacon, you can leave out anything. It's the beer. The beer does cook down, but I know there are some people that just absolutely refuse to cook with any type of spirits, which is fine. No judgment here. Just adjust the amount of beef broth that you put in and you'll be just fine. I've done it both ways because I don't always have beer, so I was just at the store, so I made sure I had some for this recipe. But you can omit it or not. But when I come back, we'll have added the beans and the tomatoes. So I put in the 1 can of diced tomatoes. I put in a half a can of tomato sauce, and I have another can if I need to adjust it. I added more cumin, more chili powder, and more paprika, and stir and continue to let it simmer. And here are the leftover black beans and the leftover small kidney beans that are added. Like I said, I know there are chili purists that don't believe in beans in their chili at all, and you can omit or not. I did taste it just before I added it in, and it at that point was already really, really delicious. Like I said, we love beans, so I add beans to mine. And at this point, you're tasting every layer. You can continue to stir and let it simmer and continue to adjust the flavors if need be. You always add less because once you add too much, you can't take it out. So I continue to just add and build the flavors and let it simmer. The longer it simmers, the better it tastes. So as I get it, the flavor adjusted to the way I like it, the way my family eats it, I'm going to put a lid on it and let it continue to simmer for about 30 minutes before it's completely done. And here it is all combined, and I'm going to cover and let it simmer and just simmer away for about 30 minutes. Like I said, the longer you're able to let it simmer, the more the flavors develop, the deeper they develop, but you really want to keep an eye on it. You can serve this over macaroni noodles. You can make chili mac. You can just serve it in a bowl alongside cornbread. That's what we like to do. We top it with cheese and sour cream, sometimes sliced onions. It's just the best. So I'll be back with my final plate.